You're listening to Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio Network, where we talk about hauntings, cryptoids, UFOs, and the supernatural. Listening to the Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio Network, bringing you the shows that make the paranormal interesting. Death really the end? Is our grave really our eternal resting place? Come with us as we seek the answer to these questions and more in the paranormal graveyard, where we walk with the dead.
I'm your host, Roger Belt, along with my co-partner in crime, Miss Christina Corzetti.
Hello, everybody.
And tonight we have a special guest with us, Mr. Jimmy Morris.
Good to be here, guys.
I'll kind of let Jimmy give you all the breakdown on what it is that he does, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Well, I am the founder of Texas Paranormal Research. I have been investigating the paranormal since 1995. I started out just in researching ghost spirits, things of that nature, and a few years down the road I got involved with UFO research, and I have been doing that ever since. For almost 8 years, I hosted a radio show on ParaX and CBS Radio called Ghost Chatter, and I currently also work as a paranormal consultant for the Travel Channel and the T&E Channel, and am a cast member on the Travel Channel series Mysteries of the Outdoors and the T&E series Mysteries at the National Park.
Fantastic.
Now, you were born in Tennessee, so you can't be all bad, because I was born in Kentucky, but I lived in Tennessee all my life.
Yes, sir. I was born in Tennessee. I moved to California when I was like 10 years old, I believe, and I lived in California through my older childhood, graduated high school, went into the military, and then I finally moved out of California in 1999 to Texas and have been here ever since.
Wow.
Well, we want to thank you first off for your service, sir.
Oh, well, thank you. I I spent 4 years in the military, but the first 2 years was in the actual military, and then I worked for a military contractor for the next 2.5 years before I tucked tail and ran.
Christina, any questions?
Yeah. All right, let's talk some paranormal, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Well, how does a person determine if there is a spiritual attachment to them versus an attachment to their home or an object in their house?
Typically, it takes time is the number one way that you tell, because, usually when a spirit is attached to a person, that spirit is going to be with them when they're inside their home, when they're outside their home. They're going to experience that spirit in different places and in different aspects of their lives and all through their lives, no matter where they go or what they do. Whereas whenever a spirit is attached to an object or a place like a house, you tend to only experience that spirit whenever you're in that place or near that object. So time is your number one thing by far to be able to determine that.
Okay.
One of the things, and Christina had actually wrote this question down and sent it to me and everything. It's very interesting because I run into this a lot. If you investigate a place and you don't get anything, does that mean that the place is not haunted?
Absolutely not, because you can I go on what I call the 80-20 average. 80% of the time you're not going to get anything, and 20% of the time you will end up getting evidence. So you might go the first time and everything you get is just phenomenal, and then you go back and you won't get anything. It takes time to establish what goes on in a location, and it is very, very hard to establish that when a person goes there, and investigates one time or one night. They're only getting a very vague picture of what's going on. That's one reason why I tell people before we investigate that, if you're expecting something like you see on TV, it's not going to happen. We're not going to come in there one night and then be back in 3 days to do an evidence review and tell you all this stuff. I said, there's no way you can know that after one night. I said, we're going to have to be here one night, and then we're going to have to go back and we're going to have to review this evidence. And I tell them, we may have 8 recorders and we may have 8 video cameras, and each one of those are going to have 6 or 7 hours of data on them. And I tell them, it takes 2 to 3 hours of review for every hour of evidence that you have if you're going to do it properly. So, very easily you're starting to get into hundreds and hundreds of hours of reviewing stuff to be able to see what you've got. So, many times I'll tell them we'll be back for a follow-up investigation, most likely before we ever even finish our evidence review.
Right. Christina?
All right. Well, yeah. I was just thinking more on the spiritual attachment there. If a ghost follows you, would you consider that a spiritual attachment, or would it just be a ghost following you?
Again, that would depend, and that's something else that would take a little time to determine, because during an investigation, we'll have a spirit follow us home. It happens quite often, and for the most part, it's because, when we go into a location that, there may be a spirit that's been there 10 days, or maybe it's been there 100 years, and we go in there, and all of a sudden, here we are. Here are these people, and they have all these things, and a spirit from 100 years ago is going to have no idea what any of the devices we use are, which is one reason why during an investigation, whenever I start, I explain everything that I have and that I'm using to any spirit that's there. You know, I tell them who I am. I tell them what year it is. I tell them what these different devices do and how we can use them to try to communicate, so that I can try to tell someone who has no idea what this stuff is what to be able to do, instead of just walking in and turning on a recorder and start yapping. You know, I want to make sure they understand what this stuff is, or try to make them understand as best as possible how they can use these to help themselves communicate with us.
Exactly. Well,
and whenever we go, go ahead.
Well, I think that when you have a spirit that's that old, okay, they're still living in their time zone, their time period.
Absolutely.
You know, I think what they're seeing is the way things were when they were there.
Yeah, and you know, some spirits, you know, they tend to stay focused on their area now, or their era, not area, their era. And then other spirits, you know, they can learn, you know, if they choose to. And, you know, and some will become more familiar over time with stuff. But lately, you hear a lot more investigators talking about they're getting more information on their cell phones. They're getting texts. They're getting voicemails, messages that are left. And, you know, that's because, you know, now cell phones have been around 30 years. And so now there are spirits out there that knows what a cell phone is. It knows what a text message is. It knows how to use this stuff. So you're going to see more and more of that as time goes on. They're gonna use more and use more and use it more. But to get back real quick to Christina's question, you know, about the attachments, you know, they can follow us home all the time. So, you know, that's not necessarily an attachment, because once they follow us home and they see that we're not doing the same thing that we were doing at that house, you know, we're not trying to communicate with them. You know, we're not sitting there for hours with equipment out. And and they will get quite noisy about it. You know, you'll have things moving around, and you'll hear kitchen doors, cabinet doors opening and closing, and, you know, then after a few days when, you know, you do not do any direct responses to this stuff, they'll go back to where they came from. So, you know, just because they follow you around doesn't mean that it's an attachment. You know, an attachment is literally like they tie a rope around you, and they're going to be with you wherever you go. You know, if you go to work, they're going to follow you. If you're in the car, they're going to be there. If you take a vacation, they're going to be in Hawaii with you. An attachment typically moves with you.
If they can follow you and whatnot, can't you do something at the investigation to make sure that they don't follow you home?
There are things that you can do, but, you know, technically, to be completely honest, unlike what a lot of people think, there are no magic words and there are no magic potions or magic spells that's going to make all these different things happen. You know, during an investigation, I always like to ask that, you know, if any spirits that are there, to stay there. Please don't follow us home. We're not going to be communicating with spirits in our homes. So even if they do follow us and try to get our attention, we are not going to respond to them. We will review the evidence that we have, and we will be back to build on that and to try to communicate with you more. But, you know, I tell them, and I ask them up front, you know, don't follow us home. And then I tell them, even if you do, after I ask you not to, we will not communicate with you in our homes. And for the most part, that works. Sometimes they still follow you home. You know, and there's people that tell you, you know, they do this, they do that, they have things that they say, but, you know, in the end, a spirit can pretty much do what it wants as far as itself. You know, there are limits to what it can do to you. You know, a spirit just can't possess you because it wants to. There's things you have to do in order to allow that to happen. So,
Okay.
you know, there are safeguards in the spiritual world that protect us. So they can't literally hurt you unless you go through some steps that allow them to.
Now, actually, I actually had a spirit follow me home from a Salem, Mass investigation that I did, and I actually do EVPs in my house to see what's in my house. And they told me they followed me, but they like it here, and they're not stuck here. They want to stay here. But I get full-blown conversations in my house, like complete sentences on EVPs. It's crazy.
Yeah, and that is very well possible, and there's nothing wrong with it. I choose not to do it because, you know, so far you've had positive experiences doing it, but
yes,
if you never know what's lurking around. And when I say that, I'm not talking about like demonics or anything like that. I'm talking about, you know, a lot of people don't realize that, you know, I have a saying, you know, spirits are people too, because if your Aunt Jane passes away and her spirit's there, that's still Aunt Jane. It's not some weird, some crazy kind of half spirit, half demonic thing. You know, that is that is your Aunt Jane. She just doesn't have a body. So on that same note, you know, that could be the spirit of your Aunt Jane, or it could be the spirit of Jack the Ripper. And
I have a question for you that's kind of outside the box of this, but have you ever run across a spirit when you were doing an EVP station that was like a ham? You know what I'm saying? Just jabber, jabber, jabber.
Oh yeah, all the time. I mean, many times, you know, most of the spirits, they want to try to communicate. I mean, you know, some of them that's why they're here. That they want so bad to be able to communicate. They have such an attachment to the living world that they, you know, that's what they're, you know, pardon the pun, that's what they're dying to do. They're dying to communicate with someone that's still alive. So, I mean, sometimes, I mean, it is so exciting. Sometimes you get those and they will talk and talk and talk.
Yeah, I ran into, actually it was a Union Civil War captain, and there was a mansion that was used as a hospital during the war, and he had a certain room in the house that was his. The only place in the house you would run into him. But he pretty much told us, you know, he enjoyed us being there, that he liked to talk. And he didn't get a chance to talk much, you know. So it was kind of like, that was weird. But, you know, I mean, that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to talk. And so we were able to let him talk for a while, and I think he really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and he did. I mean, that's, like I said, some spirits, that is exactly what they want. They want to communicate, you know. And then you've got, and you know, when that person was alive, it was probably the same way. He was probably a really outgoing, outspoken person. And you get another person who was real crabby and clammy and never wanted to talk, that they're going to be the same way. Those are the ones you're going to counter as a spirit. It's going to tell you to go away and leave them alone, because I mean that's who they are. You know, they were the same when they were alive. It's not like they went through some radical transformation. You know, they are who they are. You know, you can change just like us now. You know, we are who we are, and that we can try to be something else for a little while, but eventually, you know, our true colors are going to shine, and it's the same way with them. You know, they may, you know, pique an interest on something, but pretty soon their true colors are going to shine. And, you know, if they were grouchy and miserable in life, they're most likely grouchy and miserable as a spirit.
Well, to coin the phrase I like to use, if they were an a-hole when they were living, they're going to be an a-hole when they're gone.
That is right.
You know, I mean, and I've run into that situation a time or two. And, you know, if they were just like real nasty, you know, mean, whatever when they were living. If you run into them, they're going to be nasty and mean and whatever where they are now.
Yeah. And, you were talking about, the spirits, that talk a lot. The ones that I really like is when I run into the situations, either from EVPs or RTSC sessions, is when I get multiple spirits that are talking to each other. That, I'm really not even part of the conversation, but I can sit there and listen to them talk back and forth.
Yep. They just talk amongst themselves and they don't even acknowledge you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know
Sometimes those conversations, the conversations you get between spirits are usually way clearer than the ones that are one way between you and them.
Yeah. That's why
that's one thing I've found in my research is that those EVPs and those RTSC sessions, when they're going back and forth, are usually some of the clearest that you're ever going to get.
Yep. I agree with that. Definitely agree with that. Now, do you do spirit boxes too, or you just do...
Yes. We do several kinds. We've got some, like some of the old school ones, like the Radio Shack hacks, and, we've probably got about 6 different ones that we've done, plus we've got a few that we have modified on our own. And I've got a couple projects going right now. One of them involves I'm working with I'm going to call him a sonic engineer or a sound engineer. We're trying to come up with a new type of a ghost box that only scans certain frequencies, but they're not frequencies that our normal boxes scan. Another project I'm running has to do with the way the frequencies that spirits communicate on. Animals, for instance, it is in the paranormal community, there is a big push and a big belief that, let's say, dogs and cats can see spirits. Okay? I, on the other hand, now believe they don't see spirits, they hear them. One of the things I've done to kind of push this and to prove this is, let's say, like dog whistles. I have done EVP sessions and box sessions to where I've put these down. I've gone into a room and blew a dog whistle. And as soon as I blew that dog whistle, I get responses on ghost boxes and EVPs that the spirits heard that.
Nice.
Even though, we couldn't, the spirits heard that. So if the spirits can hear that, there's a good chance that their words and the frequencies that they are transmitting, their thoughts and their voices are on that same frequency that dogs and cats can hear, which is like the upper 20,000 band. So we're trying to see if we can get some radios done that scan those type of bands to see if we cannot pick up some really, truly active conversations.
Nice. Awesome. Roger?
Well, I'm looking at why the house has become haunted. That's a good question because I have a philosophy that spirits aren't necessarily trapped in a certain area. They can move if they want to. So
they travel all the time.
Yeah, why would they choose to haunt a certain house?
Here's another thing to where sometimes my opinion varies greatly from others in the paranormal field. A lot of people in the field, if there's a spirit in the house, then it's haunted. Okay, that's not me. In my experience, it is hard to find a house to where a spirit is either not there or doesn't visit there regularly. So to me, just because a spirit is there doesn't make it haunted, because I can go into almost any place and with enough time, I can find some evidence that there's a spirit running around there.
Right.
what classifies it as a haunting for me is that spirit is actively trying to get the attention of the people there. You know, it's moving things. Most people have spirits and they never even know because the spirit has really no interest on communicating with them, so it doesn't do anything to make itself known, and the people don't even know it's there. You know, their lives are too busy to notice the little subtle things that just might accidentally creep by, like your peripheral vision that is more in tune with your subconscious than your normal vision with your active mind. So that's why your subconscious on your peripheral vision can pick up little after images of spirits because, as a child, most children can see spirits. They can hear them. They can talk to them.
Exactly.
All these imaginary friends that kids have, that they aren't necessarily imaginary because most people are born with this ability. But as you get older, your subconscious filters all of that stuff out because we actually see way more than what our subconscious tells us we're seeing. Our eyes are just lenses. It's our brain that filters it all out and tells us what it is we need to see. So as, we get older, as a child, our brains are just, it's a learning engine and it's just learning and learning and learning. So once you pass a certain age and, you start having people tell you, you need to stop this is imaginary, your subconscious, it picks up on that and starts filtering that stuff out. That's one reason why, mediums, people that can, see and hear or see and hear spirits, a lot of times, it runs in the family, but it's not hereditary. It's not because the mom is a medium doesn't mean her daughter is. But what happens is because the mom is a medium, she doesn't discourage these things that her daughter is seeing when she's younger. So her subconscious doesn't bother with trying to filter that out. It's normal for her. So it just processes it that way, and those abilities will get stronger and stronger as they grow. That's another reason why a mother, and I'm just using females as an example. The mother who's a medium, has a daughter that she encourages. Well, that daughter most of the time will end up being a stronger medium than the mom because it grows. And then when she has, a daughter or son and she doesn't do that, then they benefit from that strength, and then they'll get stronger and stronger, and usually they're stronger than their mothers or fathers.
Yeah. It's usually around 12 to 14. You either keep it or lose it, I always thought.
I'm sorry? I didn't catch that.
I always thought between the ages of 12 to 14 was when you either keep it or you lose it, depending upon...
Yeah, probably even
That's what I always thought.
Because you probably, up until you're 7 or 8, most people don't really discourage you as far as the things you see, but, once you start getting to that 7 and 8 range and you're still talking about this, that's when, parents typically start, oh, your imaginary friend, and, that starts filtering it down because, your mind, so your subconscious going, okay, well, imaginary means it's not real. But it's not until the parents really make a switch and they start saying, you've got to stop this. You can't be doing this anymore. Now, once you start getting scolded and disciplined for that stuff, that's when your subconscious really kicks in, when you're a child and you're learning. And that's when it really starts filtering all that stuff out.
See, when I was 9, I actually saw spirits. And, my grandmother was very religious, and she beat it through my head that I imagined all that, and that spirits, there's no such thing as ghosts and all this stuff. And I did stop seeing stuff. I didn't. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, since then, I haven't seen anything.
Yep.
You text them a lot, don't you, Roger?
I'm sorry?
I know you. You sense them a lot. I know you do.
Yeah, I can sense. I just can't see them anymore.
Ah.
And I mean, it was very for a 9-year-old. When you walk right past a dead person that looks as real as you do, there's a problem. You know, I mean, what you do, you run in the house and lock all the doors. That's what we did.
Yeah. Especially when they project themselves in a bad way. When I say in a bad way, it's not. Most of the time, it's not on purpose. But a lot of times, like a person that's been in a bad accident or has been shot or something like that, a lot of times the way they project themselves is in that way. They're not doing it to scare you. It's just they're projecting an image, and they're projecting it of what they're feeling and how they're feeling and how their emotional state is. So a lot of times that's why we get that. That's why, your grandmother passes away. Well, some people will see their grandmother and she looks like she did when she passed away. Other people will see their grandmother and she's 30 years old. It's just the way that spirit is projecting themselves.
Yeah, no, I agree with that absolutely.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily a conscious decision. They're not doing it to scare us or anything like that. It's their state of mind. That's all they have is their state of mind, and that weighs heavily on them. And that energy, that transmission, that's what it is. We're seeing what they're seeing and what they want us to see, and unfortunately, sometimes it's not a pretty picture.
Well, this lady, we knew who it was. It was my next door neighbor's mother that had passed away, and she had passed like a couple of weeks prior to that, so it was pretty recent. And she was wearing the same dress that I remember seeing her in before she passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And she walked by us and she was calling out his name, so she was looking for her son. But, of course, we knew that she had passed away, so, I mean, it scared the crap out of us,
Yeah. That's interesting.
Because we realized, hey, that's a ghost. That's a real ghost,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It can be scary, especially, when you're little and you don't have anyone to explain to you, what some of the things you may hear and some of the things you may see. And, unfortunately, sometimes, again, there are nice spirits and then there are mean spirits. And, there's nothing to stop a mean spirit from purposely trying to scare the crap out of a 5 or 6 year old.
Yeah. I got a great question, actually. Can a ghost or a spirit hear your thoughts? Well, we know the answer to that question.
It depends. I don't know that they hear your thoughts, but it is pretty obvious that they can.
They know all about you, though.
They can sense things, and they know things that may not have happened yet. It's like they have a different sense of time. Like they can look forward and backward in time, and they know things that are going to happen, and they know things that are going to happen to you. I don't think it's so much that they know what you're thinking, is that they know what's going to happen, or they know something you're going to do later on, or something's going to happen to you later on. Because a lot of times when all of a sudden people start getting, hauntings, they start having things going on that never had anything before, they haven't moved, they haven't did anything. It's because there's something going on that a spirit's trying to get a message to you. Somebody is going to be sick, or somebody's going to be hurt, or somebody's going to die, and they're trying to warn somebody, and so then they will start. That's when they really get noisy, and you start they say all of a sudden things are moving around and doors are closing. They're seeing shadows. They're doing anything and everything they possibly can to try to get their attention.
But most people don't know. They just see the stuff happening and it scares them versus them realizing that
I just don't think they can read your thoughts or know what you're thinking as much as they know things that are going to happen. And then they'll try to do things to warn you.
Yeah, no,
some would try to warn you, and some would try to lead you into a bad way.
I'm sorry?
I said some of them would be, and it goes back to that, what you were when you were alive is what you are when you're gone. Some of them, if they were good people when they were living, they're going to try to warn you about impending danger or something like that. Whereas if they were the a-hole type, they may try to lure you into that dangerous area.
Yeah, that's true too.
That's one of the things that, I try to tell people sometimes, because when somebody is scared because something's going on, their number one thing is, oh my gosh, are they going to hurt us? And I always tell them the same thing. I said, first, they can't do anything to you physically unless you've done something to allow them to do that. I said, but, a spirit that is strong enough, that's what we call like poltergeist spirits that are strong enough to where they can manipulate physical things. Now, while they can't, jump inside of you and mess you up or anything like that, what a spirit can do is it can manipulate circumstances around you if it is a bad and strong enough spirit. While it may not be able to, physically really harm you, but it might be able to do enough to trip you on a set of stairs. Or, if you're on a curb, it might be able to push you in front of a car. It might just have just enough to where it can manipulate something physical to cause you bodily harm, as a side effect of what it does.
Now, how do you see a poltergeist? I mean, do you see a poltergeist as an actual mischievous spirit, or do you see a poltergeist as teenage hormones that have been locked away and they're like producing them from the some people classify the poltergeist as, as like, hormonal teenagers. To me, what I classify a poltergeist as is a spirit that is strong enough to manipulate physical objects. That can be a hormonal teenager, because hormonal teenagers give off a lot of energy. A lot of mediums who can see spirits say that a hormonal teenager looks different than a regular teenager because of the energy they're giving off. So they very well may be able to produce the same types of energy that a spirit is producing to be able to cause physical manifestations. But so again, I classify a poltergeist as something that has the ability, the energy to manipulate physical things. So to me, a poltergeist could very well be a hormonal teenager, or it could be a very strong spirit, or a group of spirits that work together to make themselves stronger. Spirits will get together, 4 or 5 spirits, to try to do one thing. When one can't make this object move, 4 or 5 of them can get together and focus their energy to do one task and can make something happen that way. So would you say that the hormonal teenager could be kind of like a magnet that would draw this spirit?
Absolutely, because spirits are drawn to energy no matter what kind of energy it is. I mean, we have energy generators that we use when we do investigations because it helps. It gives the spirits more available energy to be able to do stuff. We get a lot better ghost box, EVPs, K2s, EM pods, anything that we use to communicate, we seem to get better results whenever we run an EM generator for a while. And, we do it in such a way to where, we'll tell a spirit, okay, we're going to turn on this device. This is going to give out energy that you can use. You can absorb. You can use it. We're not going to do anything. We're going to sit still. We're not going to move. We do that because spirits do not like occupying the same space we do. And if you're up and moving around all over a place, you're going to get a lot less stuff than if you sit down, don't move, and do your stuff from there. Because if you're walking around everywhere, spirits are going to be avoiding you because they do not like, we feel that, goosebump kind of feeling whenever we pass through. They get weird feelings too. They don't like it. And so they try to stay away. So we always, when we go in, let's say to a room, we will sit down, we'll tell spirits, we're going to be right here. Nobody's going to get up. Nobody's going to move. You can come in here. You can come closer. We'll be right here, and we will tell you before we're going to get up and move. And you will not believe how much that helps during an investigation.
Huh. So back on that hormonal teenager, are you saying that they themselves, being so much energy that they're producing through that they can subconsciously move things themselves, or draw that energy? If they have enough energy, they can move things. Because technically, when you really break things down into physics and quantum physics, everything is energy, and anything can be broken down into energy. Even the solid objects that are around us, at one point in time, either was a form of energy or can be turned back into a form of energy. So energy can manipulate energy. It's just you've got to have enough of it. It's just like now we have, there are sonic devices. I can set a can over there, and there's sonic devices you can get and point at it, and you won't see nothing, but you can knock that can off because, there's sonic energy. That's energy that can affect that because it's energy. And it's just, you've got to have enough of it, and it's got to be the right kind and the right type. And those are things that spirits have to learn. That's why every spirit can't go around knocking your TVs off your tables because, it takes time, and it takes, the ability. I kind of try to look at it as like, athletes. You've got someone who is a natural athlete, and they can have no training or whatever, but they can be the best basketball player that ever lived. And then you've got another kid who practices their whole lives at basketball, and they will never be as good as that kid over there who never practiced a day in his life. This is something, it's a natural ability, and the same thing goes with, spirits too. Some spirits have a natural ability to where they're better at manipulating energy, so they're better at making things happen. Okay. All right. Let's talk apports. Spirits, can they make your belongings disappear?
I'm sorry, you kind of cut out there.
Oh, can spirits make your belongings disappear? Like apports, you know what I mean?
Can they make lines disappear?
Your belongings, like keys.
Your
belongings.
When they move stuff around. And they do that mostly. Sometimes they do it to get your attention and when they move stuff around. Now, when they hide stuff, it's just somebody playing a joke on you. It's a spirit that it gets a laugh out of watching you wonder where your keys were. Just like, again, you've got comical people and jokesters. In death, they're the same thing. So, those type of people, especially if it's like a family member or a friend or something, they get a kick out of watching you, go crazy because you knew you put your keys there and then they moved them somewhere else. They have that ability to do that, or they have banded together with some other spirits to make that happen.
It's funny too. when they take something from a certain place, and then after they let you look for it for an hour or two, they put it back in the same spot.
Put it back.
Yep. Yep. And they'll be right back there, and that's because they're in one way they're doing it as a prank, and in the other way they're sending you a message, that hey, we're here. But most of the time, people just don't connect the dots.
Right.
And, if that happens to me, I just, I'll comment back and say, oh, that was a good one. Made me look for this thing for an hour.
Yeah. Now you hear about this all the time, okay? And you see it all the time. What about the dead calling the living?
The what? I'm sorry?
The dead. Can they call the living?
Call the living?
Yeah. You hear about it all the time. Phantom phone
when you say call, you mean like on the phone?
Yeah, phantom phone calls.
Yes, they can, especially the ones that know what a phone is. That's what I was saying earlier. Now you're seeing more and more people who are getting text messages, weird text messages from these people. People that have gotten text messages from the phone of someone who's passed away, and that phone is not even on anymore. Yet a spirit can manipulate that because it's all energy and the cell towers, the signals, it's all energy. So when a spirit has a working knowledge in his mind of how that cell phone works, then they work on manipulating that, and they know that when they project something, your subconscious receives that and it receives that image. Where it's the same way, they can direct that energy to like a phone and make that phone do what it's receiving that energy from that person, and that energy is telling this phone to make a call. Just like when you push the buttons on a phone, the phone doesn't magically know that you're pushing these buttons, what you're doing. It's because each one of those buttons, it translates that into a energy signature that does something and then sends a signal somewhere. So, spirits, they learn that and they learn how to use that. And, there may be one spirit, there's spirits, we call guides, and that are out there that are really smart spirits that have learned to manipulate all this, and they use each other. I mean, a spirit that can't do this might ask another one to do this for them. And so that's how, a lot of more things are getting done when, those spirits may not, they may have just passed away, yet they're giving you messages, and it may not be because they're strong enough to do it, but they've gotten another spirit who is stronger and knows how to do it for them.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, there's even a thing. It's called the Big Circle, and I don't know if you've heard of that, but if you do a lot of EVP sessions, it's something you should start asking, or even box sessions, start asking about the Big Circle, and you'll find out that the spirits have their own network of how they communicate, and it's called the Big Circle. And you can ask one spirit if you wanted to talk to the spirit of your mom who's passed away, and you start talking to a spirit, ask that spirit if they can go through the Big Circle and get a message that you want to talk to your mother and tell them who your mother is, and give a time. Say, if you can get in touch with her, I will be back here Thursday at 9:00, and do things like that, and then be sure to come back at those times and start checking, and you'll start seeing that some of your messages will start getting through, and you can communicate with people like that may not necessarily be there. But if you want to communicate with them, you might be able to get a message to them to bring them there.
Well,
that's very interesting, actually.
There's another question, though. Do spirits see time the same as we do, or is it different?
Well, again, that's what I kind of answered earlier. I think spirits, when she was talking about do they read your thoughts, and and I said I don't think they read thoughts, more that they have a different perception of time.
That's what I was
You
getting
can encounter a spirit that has been dead 100 years and does not have any idea of how much time has passed. But you can talk to another spirit, they can tell you they've been dead for 30 years. The spirit, I think they set their own perception, and, depending on what that is, like one thing we notice is that spirits that die suddenly, like in accidents and, are killed or something like that, has a very, very different perception than someone who has died naturally and goes through the natural course of death. It's scientifically proven that when a person dies an hour or two before, there's a lot of things that goes on in the brain. Parts of the brain that has been dormant all your life suddenly becomes active. Your body starts releasing massive amounts of endorphins into your system. And also, you'll notice that as those different parts of the brain becomes active, that's when people start saying that they see their mothers or their grandmothers or other peoples who have passed on. They start seeing them and they're there talking to them. That's because some of those blocks that we've had from birth are starting to break down. Your brain literally has a program for when you die, and when it knows that time is coming, it starts going through this program and it starts doing these things and preparing you for what's about to happen, for your crossing over, so to speak. And
well, that's why
whenever
time
you
when
die
the
suddenly,
said,
you don't go through that. So all of a sudden, this spirit is just vaguely aware of itself and nothing seems right. They may think they're in a dream because they just have no conscious feeling of the passing of time.
Right. That's what I was getting at about, is their time and our time the same? Do they not realize, like when an hour passes here, it could be an eternity over there,
Yeah.
Now for the funny question. Going back to the calling, the dead calling the living, the cell phone thing. Is it possible, because you're entering a spirit form and you're in a different dimension, so to speak? Do they, you think, possibly, you've heard they have certain jobs over there that they do. Mm-hmm. It's like a learning experience. You're graduating yourself up through the ranks. But do you think they have, like, their own type of devices over there that they use?
I don't know that they have their own type of devices because, they are literally energy. And I think that everything they do is just, if you think about it, anything and everything that we know about them is based on energy. Everything that they can do that we know that we have evidence of, EVPs, RTSC devices, actually seeing them, it can all be broken back down to energy. And physical things like devices and things like that is also energy. Now, there's also, for sure we know there's another place. When they pass, when a spirit passes, there is another place that it can go. And whether you want to call that place heaven or you want to call that place whatever, we know that if there is somewhere else that they can cross over to. But we also know they can come back, that they can go back and forth between this place. There's a big misconception that if you can contact with the spirit, then it's not crossed over yet. And, you have people that are out there that as soon as they find a spirit, they're going through all this stuff trying to get it to cross over. If they want to cross over, they'd cross over, they'd be gone. And, when they go over there's nothing to stop them from coming back. They can come back and forth. So on that other side, we don't know a whole lot about what's on the other side of that. We know kind of what happens on this side before they cross over, but you can't get a whole lot of information. Yes, they'll tell you that they've been here, and yes, they'll tell you they've come back from here, but It's almost like a rule. They don't talk about this other place. And, they'll tell you, yes, it's there. Yes, it exists. Yes, I've been there. Yes, it's good. But that's it. You can't get any fine details out of it. And, but, on this side, it's kind of like it's a smorgasbord of things. It's good spirits, bad spirits, happy ones, sad ones that want to talk to you, ones that ain't going to say a peep to you. So it's on that other side. Maybe you have a physical body on the other side. We don't know because we can't get those questions answered.
Yeah.
We can ask them. Yeah. They'll tell us anything else about this side, but they won't answer you when you ask stuff about over there.
Now that leads me to a question. Let's talk closets and mirrors. Are they portals for spirits?
What is that again? I'm sorry?
Closets and mirrors. Are they portals?
Closets, I don't think is any kind of portal. You have a lot of activity in closets because closets are closed and dark, and it's probably the one place in your house other than an attic or a basement that you are at the least often. And as far as the spirit goes, it really doesn't care where it's at as long as it's in a location. It's energy, so it doesn't matter if it's dark or anything like that. And, that's also why a lot of people that move into a house and, they'll move into a new house and they'll say it's haunted. But the people that lived there before never said anything about it being haunted. And, the people that moved in, they weren't haunting at the place they were before, but it's because that place stayed closed up and dark and empty. And for some spirits, that's an ideal place to be. So, a transit spirit will, it'll move into an abandoned house, because it's abandoned. They don't want to be around us. They don't want to be around people, and so that's where they go. And then when new people move in, they're not too happy with it, and eventually, in most of those cases, the spirit leaves, because once it figures out the people's not going to go, then it literally packs its bags and moves on.
Well, what about mirrors then? Mirrors, water, anything like that?
Mirrors are a little different, but I would not personally go as far as to say I think that they're portals, but what I think they are is I think they kind of distort our vision a little bit. Kind of goes back to your subconscious and all those filters. And I think that mirrors, they see things differently. We see things through a mirror differently than we do through our eyes. When we look at something in our eyes, it looks one way, but if you see it through a mirror, it looks a little different. And I think that's why sometimes, people look in a mirror and they see spirits and they turn around and they're gone. It's because that mirror is what caught the image of that spirit, not your eyes. Okay? Your eyes know to filter out that spirit, but your eyes didn't see that spirit. Your eyes saw the mirror, and the mirror saw the spirit.
That's a great point. Yep.
So that's what I think happens with the mirrors.
Okay, we're gonna take about a 3-minute break, y'all. Everybody, refill your glasses, coffee cups, what have you, and we shall be right back.
You're listening to Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio Network, where we talk about hauntings, cryptoids, UFOs, and the supernatural. Listening to the Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio Network, bringing you the shows that make the paranormal interesting. really the end? Is our grave really our eternal resting place? Come with us as we seek the answer to these questions and more in the paranormal graveyard, where we walk with the dead.
Okay, everybody, we are back. Or I am back. Obviously, Christina is back.
Yeah,
and I'm still here as well.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody's here.
Roger, I'd like to change the subject a little bit, if that's okay.
Fine.
Yeah. Jimmy, you said you yourself were a UFO researcher?
Yes, ma'am. I've been researching UFO cases since about 1998.
Oh wow! All right,
so
let me
going
ask,
on about 20 years.
Are alien abductions more common than people are aware of?
Not anymore. They used to be a lot more common than people were aware of. And then over the past couple of decades, they've almost gone non-existent.
Really?
You do not hear nowhere near as many credible abduction cases as you did like in the 60s and 70s.
Why is that, you think?
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that our government has already made contact with several different alien species. And on top of that, I think that the abductions that occurred for a reason. In the late 50s, all through the 60s and even the early 70s, there were massive amounts of abduction cases all over the world. Then after the 70s, the early 70s, they started tapering off. And then in the 80s and the 90s, you had what we call the Nordics start popping up across the world. These are the blonde-haired, blue-eyed, what we believe to be alien-human hybrids that started popping up. And we think they started popping up as a result of all the testing and stuff that was done during the abduction cycles.
That makes sense.
A lot of the abductions, had to do with women who said that, they had their embryos removed and they were literally, their embryos were impregnated with alien DNA and put back inside of them, only for them to be re-abducted later on and get taken out. We believe that is why these alien human hybrids is why all those abduction cases happened. And then after they got what they needed, you really don't hear a whole lot of them anymore, at least are any that are credible. All the ones in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, most of those were really, really credible stories, Now you might get some crackpot shooting off at the mouth, this and that, but, there's no evidence of it, and, they're known for telling tall tales, in their personal lives, so the stories you do hear now just isn't credible.
You kind of answered the question, then. The aliens do live among us on Earth. You kind of answered the question that aliens do live among us on Earth. I
honestly believe that they do, and I also think that they're here for a reason. And the best reason I have been able to come up with over the years is it's inevitable at some point that the government is going to have to disclose that they've made contact and there's other people out there, simply because of progression. The government is way ahead of where we are when it comes to things like spacecrafts and things like that, because they have them. I mean, there's too many pieces of proof out there that they exist, and for whatever reason, I'm not going to say for whatever reason. There's some reasons that are obvious, and there's some reasons that are not obvious as to why they would keep this type of information secret. And they obviously have made contact and are in contact with these different beings. Otherwise, an alien ship would just land in the middle of the White House lawn, and then all the questions are over. It's a done thing. So, there is a collaboration out there between, the governments, and not just our government. I mean, for many governments and these entities as to why, they're here and why the government is keeping their being here a secret and things of that nature.
So the Men in Black.
Yeah, are the Men in Black real, or is that just made up?
Well, the name Men in Black may be made up, but are there people out there that know this information about aliens and knows that it's got to be kept secret and goes to great lengths to make sure that it stays secret? Yes, there are definitely people like that out there.
That it's their job to shut everybody up.
Yeah, whereas, when people say Men in Black, they think about, people that police the aliens. I don't think it's that. But there are organizations out there whose sole purpose is to protect this secret, and it is well known that they'll go through any lengths they can to protect it, and and there's certain things people have asked me many times, because of the work I've done in the past with the government and things like that. Do I worry that something I say is going to get me in trouble or make me disappear or something like that? And to me, the answer is no, because I know the things they're trying to hide, and the things that they're trying to hide is not something I would ever go out and say, okay, you can go over here and there's an underground base over here. Now you start that talk saying, go over here and find this underground base. Okay, that is what gets people gone. That's what gets people killed or banished or whatever you want to call it. The government itself, these groups, they put out tons of information on purpose, because they want the people to know about it. They just don't want them to be able to prove it. They want the talk to be out there, and they will put one story out to lead somebody over here to misdirect them to keep them away from something over there.
Same way they do with the whole stirring up the racial stuff to keep everybody's mind occupied while they're flipping something under you.
Exactly, and they spend tons of resources into putting their own misinformation out there, and I say misinformation. A lot of it's not. A lot of it's not misinformation, but it's just information to. Part of it is, I think, is you can attribute to a learning curve. Again, I think at some point they realize that the people is going to have to know, because for whatever reason and for whatever circumstances are there right now, you can only hold back so much at a time. Eventually, enough people is going to break forward till all of a sudden, your everyday person is going to be able to go to the moon and find out there's a base on the other side. Or they're going to be able to go to Mars and find out there's been a colony there for 20 years. There's all kind of things that time, they can only push things back so far. Right now, they're the only ones that can go to the moon, and they're the only ones that can go to these planets. But as soon as, people progress enough to where they're not relying on the government to do these things because they've progressed enough on their own, then things like this are going to come to light. So that's why I think some of this information they put out is a learning curve, because I think one of the reasons why they don't disclose a lot of this is one of the biggest things is religion. Most religions are built around the concept that, of God and us being the only people. Well, all of a sudden, if the public knew there were other beings out there, then that creates a chaos on the religious factor. And it could be huge because of the amount of religious people that are in the world. No matter what your faith is, it's all kind of based around one concept, and that is, we are the only ones here. But things are changing there. Last year, the Catholic Pope made a statement that said, for the first time, they have always said, it's us and God. And then last year, they made a statement that said, if there is alien life out there, it would not necessarily change our beliefs. It would just be something that we did not know before. And for them to come out and make that statement, to me, is a clear indication that they know at some point, they know this already and it's going to come out, because they're already changing thousands of years of doctrine. Just the one thing that they have held most dear, and now they're changing it because, they're already putting the feelers out there that say, hey, if this happens, even though we said for 5,000 years that this was a lie, if this does happen, it's okay. Everything else is still okay. But that's literally what they said and what they're saying.
So let me ask you a question that says UFO encrypted researcher. So I'm going to put two and two together here. Bigfoot and UFOs. People say that
and UFOs. Are they connected? That depends. Some people think that Bigfoot creatures, I will call them, were literally like alien sentries that were put here in our past. There's proof out there aliens have been visiting us for tens of thousands of years.
Right.
Some people think that they were put here or left here for a purpose. I have not come to that conclusion yet. I mean, I've looked at it, and I by far don't know everything, and it is very plausible that could end up being the case. Personally, I haven't seen what I needed to see yet to really connect the dots on those two, because on the other hand, I can go back tens of thousands of years and hundreds of thousands of years and see species that this very well could be an ancestor of. So, there is some type of evidence in history that says, well, maybe these could be something, left over from aliens, or maybe these are just an evolutionary deal. I mean, on the flip side of that coin, there are those that think that we are the aliens here, that we were brought here, that like Bigfoots and dinosaurs and all those things, they were all here before us, and we were the ones that were brought here and planted.
Right. I've heard a lot of that too.
But the thing is if Bigfoot, you have so many Bigfoot sightings out there. I mean, they're everywhere. How come not one has been caught yet?
Well, you have to assume that if this creature is out there, that it is highly intelligent. Could be just as intelligent as us, maybe even more intelligent. How many human bodies do you see just laying around somewhere when you go places? You really don't, because, we bury our dead. There's nothing to say that, they don't bury their dead either. Most intelligent species would. Even like monkeys and things like that tend to remove their dead and cover them and stuff like that. You don't go through the jungle and see dead monkeys laying all over the place either. And they are a lower class primate species, but they still do things that show that they're more intelligent than, let's say, a dog or cat or something like that. So if you figure that these Bigfoots or Sasquatches are intelligent, well, they purposely avoid us, and they're smart enough that they don't leave a whole bunch of clues behind, and they may have senses way stronger than ours. They have greater eyesight, greater hearing. So most animals do, and you can go out in the woods looking for a tiger, and you're not going to find them, even though there's 100 tigers in the woods, because they stay away from you. And even normal animals, when you can go walking through the woods for days and may not see one dead animal, even though there's probably hundreds of them in there, because nature kind of cleans up its own mess pretty quick. And even if they didn't bury their dead, the chances of you running across one before nature takes care of it is, slim.
Well,
and if it's intelligent, it's even way more likely.
If they are interdimensional beings, as I've heard, and I've heard lots of different things where they come from, but if they were, if one of them were to die, they could also remove that body back into the other dimension that would never be found anyway.
Yeah, and if they were interdimensional and they died, they might automatically disappear.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, if they're interdimensional, you have to ask yourself, okay, yes, are there other dimensions possible? Most likely, yes. But maybe there's technology involved. Maybe there's some type of technology they have to use to get from one dimension to the other. So whatever their normal dimension is, maybe they have to use a device of some kind to get here. And if something happens to them here, then they automatically go back to wherever they, originally came from. I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities there, especially if you accept the possibility that they're intelligent. Possibly way more intelligent than us.
That's interesting.
I just, thinking about, because you hear so much about, when there's a UFO scene, that's when a lot of cases of Bigfoot are seen. So it makes you wonder, are they related? Or did they bring them here, send them out like on a scouting mission or something, Do they go back aboard some alien craft and go back to wherever,
Mm-hmm. There was a man one time, and I can't think of his name right now, but he wrote a paper, and it was very interesting. This guy was he was like a psychic medium, and he was pretty well known, and I wish I could think of his name offhand, but he was really well respected, in the fact that the things that he told people, were legit, that it wasn't just off the wall kind of stuff. And he went into the woods one time on a hunting trip, and he said that he made telepathic contact with a Bigfoot when he was in the woods that was kind of scoping his camp. And he wrote like a memoir about things that he mentally asked and got answers back. And some of the things were, why don't they attack people if they know they're out there trying to get them? And the answer that he got back was, it was that we know if we hurt one, many more will come. And it was a lot of questions like that, back and forth, like, why don't you do this, and why don't you show yourselves to us, and things like that. And it was answers like, we weren't meant to, and it was just a lot of, some of them were really weird answers that you'd say, well, gosh, if you're going to make up something, you'd make up something better than that. But it was really interesting that some of the things, because they were really intelligent answers when you put thought to them of why they didn't do anything. And they were talking about the people coming in their ships with the ships with their flaming rods. I remember seeing in there, which is probably talking about cars and guns. I mean, it was just a way that he related the things that he saw or he heard.
Yeah, that's very interesting. But I heard they do attack people, and they throw them up in the trees. That's what I heard.
Maybe, here's the thing, maybe some people that go missing, maybe they are attacked by them. I mean, we don't know. The only thing we have to go off of is the fact that people who have seen them and said that, they've lived to tell about it, that they haven't attacked them. I mean, I think there's only one case, and again, I don't remember the names, but I know it was two hunters. These two hunters were the only ones that ever reported running into a Sasquatch, and it attacked them. Okay. That lived to tell about it, and they got away from them. It said it had thrown them around, and then they had fired off some shots, and they believed they had hit it, and then it ran back in the woods. But this was two hunters, and to my knowledge, those are the only two that I've ever heard. Only two stories, people that said that they've been attacked, physically attacked by one. Now, a lot of people have said that they've been hit by things like rocks, but most people who encounter them said they're just rocks thrown in their direction. So, even if they were hit by a rock, it could have been accidental.
Yeah,
because,
I heard that too.
They tend to make noise and hit trees and throw things, and we believe that those kind of instances maybe happen when people get too close to home, so to speak. Maybe they've got maybe they live close by. Maybe there's young ones close by. But it seems for the most part they're just curious up until a point. And then it seems like when people start camping out in certain areas, that's when they start getting things like rocks and things like that thrown at them, because they're too close to home. And then you can go back to that spot later and you never see anything, because I think once the threat is gone. I think they're nomadic and they move around. They say, okay, well, we're not staying here because these people may come back and they may come back with a lot more people. So then they change locations, and that's one of the reasons why they're so elusive, because when people start getting close, they move on to someplace different. So they're always pretty much on the move.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what do you think of other cryptids like Mothman, Goatman, Jersey Devil, all that?
A lot of that, personally, I think is just kind of urban legends and myths. But, to be completely honest, I haven't, past like Bigfoot, I haven't really dove too much in the research of those things.
Yep.
I've read the stories, and I've seen the people say this and say that, but I haven't put the time and resources into stuff like that as I have with like things of the paranormal, like spirits and UFOs, and even a little bit into like Bigfoot and Sasquatch, but and mostly that just because there is possible tie-ins to, interdimensional beings, which might also be a tie-in to spirits, which also might be a tie-in to aliens.
What
so
exactly?
I really can't speak too intelligently about those things.
Again, I'll say, what is Black Shucks supposed to be? I've never heard of that one.
Black what?
Black Shucks.
Black
like a hellhound.
Shuck?
Yeah, it's like a hellhound.
Okay, I've never heard of that one before.
It's ghostly dog.
That's just. Oh, go ahead.
No, it's like the ghostly dogs. You know what I mean? The real evil dogs.
Yeah, that kind of goes along. Some people say those are kind of what the chupacabras are, and here in Texas, they even had a sighting a number of years back. These were sightings that were on a police car dash cam of they chased this thing down the road, and it was the weirdest looking thing, but it looked like it was like some kind of cross between a jackal and a coyote and a wolf. I mean, it was just really, really weird, and they never caught it, and so they really don't know what it was, only that it was one weird, ugly-looking creature. And and I think a lot of things that we take as myths and urban legends. Most things have some kind of footing in reality. It may be way different than what it originally was, but most things that you hear about like that has some kind of real footing in reality. Things like like the chupacabra deal. It very well. It's called the blood-sucking goat. Well, it could be something as maybe some weird animal, a jackal or something. Somebody let loose and did something way back when, and so this little story started, and then the next person tells it, and it's different.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Every step of the ladder, the story changes a little bit and gets bigger and wilder until, you've got the chupacabra blood-sucking goat out there that turned out, that originally started with like a rabid squirrel or something.
Yeah. We actually have a question in chat. Mary wants to know, when using a PSB-7, how do you know you're not communicating with extraterrestrials? What's a PSB-7?
Well, I guess honestly, you may not know. I mean, you just, on that same note, there's nothing to say that when you're on any device, whether it's the PSB-7 or any other type of RTSC device, that the person on the other end can say they're Sally Jones, when they might be Laura Miller. there's nothing to say they've got to tell you the truth. I mean, a spirit can lie to you and tell you anything it wants to. So, you never really 100% know, unless it's maybe like one of your family members that you know what they sound like and they tell you things that, only they would know. And then, that lends more credibility to the fact that that person is who they say they are. But, it's true. I mean, you could very well be talking to an alien species, but, the only thing we can go off of is, we have to proceed on the honor system and assume that if an alien was communicating with us through EVPs or through RTSC, why would they say they're Aunt Jane instead of saying they're someone from another planet? I mean, we're already researchers delving into the backside of nowhere that, isn't a confirmed science yet. So, you got to ask yourself, what is the benefit of an alien species between pretending to be someone else? What's the purpose in that? And, is there anything to be gained? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can't think of anything. If they're pretending to be Aunt Jane, what good is that going to get from them? I mean, they would be able to determine more from just watching the living than trying to get a few words in edgewise through a RTSC or a EVP.
Okay.
I want to ask a question here pertaining to aliens and actual spirits. Whereas it's been said, that aliens can, what's the word I'm looking for, cloak themselves. Okay, where you don't, if you was looking at one, you wouldn't necessarily see an alien. You might see a body of an outline. Now, if they have the intelligence to do this, could they not also have the intelligence to do this with this cloaking device to make this look like a human spirit?
I missed that last part. To make what about a human spirit?
Okay. When they cloak themselves, if they have the technology to do something like that, could they not have the technology to look like a human spirit?
Possibly, but then again, I have to go back and ask myself, what would be the benefit of that? Okay, if they can cloak themselves from us, which is very possible because we know they can cloak their ships from us, because a lot of sightings that has happened has been on video recorders where people have been recording something, and when they look back on the tape, they see the object, but they never saw it with their eyes when they were looking in the same spot. So we believe that's because, again, cameras see things differently than our eyes do, and they see a lot more wavelengths than we do. So it is very possible a camera might catch something that our eye wouldn't. And so knowing that they've got the technology to do that, I have to ask myself, what is the benefit of an alien being to pretend to be or make themselves appear to be a spirit? I mean, what's it? It's almost like they're making themselves invisible just so they can make themselves appear, but appear as something different. They wanted to appear, they would make themselves appear to be us and walk around and get whatever information they'd want to get. So until I can find something that says, that there's some kind of benefit to this, I just can't make the connection with that.
Do we know that they don't make themselves look like us to walk around and learn what they're trying to learn?
Many reports say they do. My research over the years has told me that there is at least 7 different alien species that we know of. 2 of those we believe has the ability to literally shape-shift and make themselves appear to be other people or other things. Anything from humans to animals. And, then there are other ones that seem to be, they're completely different. There's some of them that are tall. There's other ones that are short, different colors. There's gray ones, there's green ones. And then, then you've got the hybrids that look almost, they pass for human, but, they're very muscular. Most of them have blonde hair. Most of them have really blue eyes. They're tall. A lot of times when they've been seen wearing almost like uniforms, almost like skin tight uniforms. One of the things I talked about those on the Travel Channel and T&E channel was the Nordics in Mexico in the zone of silence, about a bunch of the people who have ran into them down there in that area. And I kind of take offense a little bit, because some of the other programs that I've ever seen where they talk about Nordics paint them as like this violent alien species that, chase people down and make them disappear and all that. Yet in reality, every single case that is credible that I've ever come across is just the opposite. Whenever they're encountered, it's usually when people are in dire trouble, out in the middle of the desert, lost, stuck, and they just kind of appear out of nowhere and help. I mean, and that's been the case on every single credible sighting that I've ever been able to confirm with them. And so it, I think, again, TV tries to, fear sells, so they try to put something up to make people fear something or scared of something. But, in reality, every single case is one where they're trying to help someone.
It's very interesting. Well, we do have 20 minutes left of the show. I have a question for you. Personally, what's the most real evidence that you've personally uncovered so far?
Real evidence. It would have to be, I can't say that there's one particular piece. You really have to take the different pieces of things that you find over the years and where they come from. Credible things. You look at people that come out and leak stuff, and then again, you have to analyze it. You have to say, okay, what does this person have to gain? Has he written 5 books on this, and so he's trying to sell his next book? Or did this person work for 30 years in classified projects, and he hasn't made a dime off of any of this? It's just something that he feels that he needs to get out. And most of your credible stuff comes out from third parties. It's not necessarily that person that said anything, but that person told someone they trusted, and that person leaked it out. And then when that person goes back to confirm it, after poking and prodding for a while, they come out and they say, okay, well, I will never admit this, but, this is what happened, and this is what I did, and this is where I was at. And the thing is, those things will coincide with somebody 5 years from now or 5 years ago who similarly does the same things, and then you start seeing patterns emerging. These people worked at the same place, and he said he was over here, and this element he talks about was the same element this guy talks about, and they're on different sides of the country, and this has really never been publicly published anywhere. So it's just a matter of finding these different little pieces. A number of years back when Reagan was president, there was a document that got leaked, and it was an interview with Reagan and the NSA and a bunch of other people when he was elected president, and it was talking about UFOs. And if you read through that, it was like the teletype deal of the conversations. there were things that were in there that just somebody trying to make something like that up would have never happened. And then on top of that, there were people that came out later on that made little slip-ups that, while Reagan was president, they couldn't believe when the president told them this, and they might not actually say what it was, but then they'd say, then we saw this for ourselves, and like, my God, how could that actually exist up there? And just different little things like that. And, those are the really pieces of credible evidence that we have. It's not so much people sending in pictures of something they see in the sky, because 95% of those are hoaxes. And, I have a saying about pictures and videos. They say, pictures are worth 1,000 words. Well, in the paranormal field, they're worth 1,000 criticisms, because no matter how good or accurate a photo is, it's only going to be 100% legit to the person that took that photo.
Exactly.
Once it leaves that person, it's never 100% legit from the person that actually took it and knows 100% that is a legit photo. From that point on, it goes downhill from there.
Yeah, you're right.
No matter, it could be legit, and you're still going to have half the people that see it right off the bat going to say it's fake. Oh, it's fake. And it's not fake, but they'll say it's fake.
What's that, Roger?
That's what it was.
Oh, stopped, yep.
Yeah. So in my investigating, both in spirit investigation, UFO investigations, over the years, I rely less and less on photo and video. I want stuff I can tangibly use, and when it comes to ghost hunting, for me, my best deal is my personal interactions, my EVPs, and my RTSC sessions, whether it's ghost boxes or devices or whatever I'm using, because it's something that I can have as evidence, because to me that is more tangible than a photo that can be so easily done. It's not as easy as you think to fake an audio file than it is a picture. You can fake a picture and a video all day long. An audio file, you can tell. You can't take an original clip and do a bunch of stuff to it and not be able to tell something was done to it.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there's just so many subtle variations in there that, open up something like WavePad or something and run a file, and then go start messing with it. Go start plugging stuff in there and mixing it, and then look at your original file and see if you can't tell, where those things have entered in there and how before and after it changes the wavelength of the file before, even though you didn't do anything to that part. It may be 2 or 3 seconds before, but you can already see changes occurring from where you went and put that stuff in there. So that's why you don't see a whole lot of faked audio evidence. Now, granted, people will put stuff out there, and, it's hard to replicate an EVP because you can just tell. If you know what you're doing, you can go in and tell when somebody replicated that, or they added something in there and then tried to filter it down and change all the different amplifications and stuff like that. It's easy to spot.
Okay.
Now, touch on something here we ain't talked any about yet. Have you ever dealt with a demonic case?
I dealt with one which I considered to be demonic one time. It was very early on. when I first started doing this, back in the, I think it was like 96 or 97. It was a case that we investigated in California, and it was like almost like a big old beach house. I want to say beach house because it was on the beach, but it didn't look nothing like a beach house. It was just an old house, and an older couple had lived there, but the husband had passed away, and I think she was 78, if I remember correctly, when we investigated that. And we knew right away it was way different than anything that we'd ever done, and it was way different than anything that I've ever seen since. There were literally things that would come off of the counters and the mantles and fly at you, and not just, been over. I mean, they would come at you at high speed. And, we eventually got some clergy involved, and honestly, I don't know really what happened to it past that point, only that the lady never went back to the house. So we kind of lost contact with the house after that. And I know that, over the following years that some other people moved into the house, and then a few years after that, it was eventually torn down and something else was rebuilt there. But that would have to be the only case where I would say that it was truly something I thought that was a demonic entity. I mean, they're just so rare. Most, when you see the shows in every episode, they're on there finding some of the kind of demonic entity. I mean, it's fake as crap at that point, because they're just not that rare. You just don't run across them that often. If you ever run across one in decades of ghost hunting, you're probably lucky.
When you run across something like that, does it make you think, well, hey, either I need to learn some of this demonology, or I need to have a demonologist on my team, or just in case I run into something like this in the future?
If you ever run into one, you will understand very quickly why you need someone who is more versed in the biblical and more religious teachings of demonics than what your everyday ghost hunter out there is going to run into, because the rules are completely different. This is something that does not follow the rules that all the other spirits, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent, follow. They have a completely different agenda, completely different set of rules. So even your so-called demonologist, they would have to be someone that I knew was really involved into the biblical and religious aspect of it, before I would, just because they said, well, I'm a demonologist. Well, you better have some kind of credibility to back that up, other than just say, oh, I know what to do if there's a demonic entity there.
It would stand to reason, though, that if a demonic spirit has never lived, it wouldn't follow the same rules and stuff as a
exactly
normal human spirit would.
Exactly, because it isn't a human spirit; it's something else. And even in the biblical and religious sense of it, there's different answers as to what they truly are, depending on which religion you talk about. Yet every religion has them. So they are something that is there, based on religion and biblical senses, because even though what they may be are talked about in different ways, every religion has it. It has that thing that it is the equivalent of a demonic. So, I mean, even that tells you that, okay, regardless of what all these other things believe, there is something dark in all of these things that doesn't go with the normal flow of things. These are something completely different. And your body knows when you're in the presence of something like that. Your body knows your stomach will hurt. The hairs on your arms stand up. I mean, you get headaches and you get these flighting fits of fear. I mean, things that you normally, even if nothing is going on, you know there's something there that your body is telling you, this is not right. You need to get out of this situation fast.
We're getting down to about 7 minutes here, so if you want to pass out some links for everybody, how they get a hold of you and all that kind of stuff, it'd be a good time for that.
Okay. Well, if anyone needs to get a hold of me, you can contact me through my website, which is at tprt.org. That's the initials for Texas Paranormal Research Team. I can also be reached on Facebook. Thanks to Facebook's new rules and regulations, I have like 3 different Facebook accounts. But under Jimmy Morris, you'll find one. They made me open one as a public figure when I hit 5,000 on my one, and when I started doing the TV stuff. And then there's one under Jimmy Morris, Texas Paranormal Research, and then there's one, just my personal one. So any one of those 3 you can get in touch with me through. And currently, like I said, I have a show on Mysteries of the Outdoors that plays in the United States on the Travel Channel. I'm not sure when the next showing is going to be. I do know you can go to their they have a way to view it when it's off air, but I think you've got to pay for it. I think they're like $1.99 if you want to go to their site, and you can pay to see it anytime. Otherwise, you can just go and look under Mysteries of the Outdoors and look for Strange Attractions, and that's the name of the actual episode. And it views a lot more still because it actually released first on Mysteries at the National Park on T&E, which is the Travel and Escape channel. Some cable providers don't provide it since it's actually a Canadian and a UK channel. But they show it a lot more often, and sometimes you can watch it straight from their site. And I think theirs is travelandescape.ca since they're actually based out of Canada. But either one of those would be a great way to get in touch with me. And I'm in the process of writing a book that'll be out next year, and it's based on one of the Big Ben mystery tablet stories that I told a little bit about in Mysteries of the Outdoors. But they really didn't go into details. There's a lot of back history to it. So I've got a book called Symbology to Ufology that talks about the Big Ben mystery tablets and how they tie in to different UFO situations and things like that. So that should be out in the summer of 2018.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, we'd like to thank you, Jimmy, for coming on the show with us tonight. Had a great time.
I did too. You guys had some really great questions, and I hope I didn't bore you guys too much.
Very interesting. And we appreciate very much you coming and being with us tonight, and also everybody that came and joined us in the chat room over there. We appreciate all of y'all. And we hope,
thank you guys. And
I believe our next date is the 18th.
Yeah, we have Beyond the Grave Radio on the 18th. Yeah.
And we have Corey. What's his name?
Thibodeau.
Corey. I can't think of his last name.
Corey Thibodeau. Yeah.
Yeah.
They wanted him back, so we got him back.
Yeah, he's really a great guy. Y'all will love that show. He's very interesting. He's very knowledgeable. Jimmy was very knowledgeable too. I learned a lot of stuff from you.
I
keep my pen and
tonight.
paper handy, just in case. Because it doesn't matter, and I'll say this as a farewell, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this. Nobody knows everything.
Yep.
Having said that, good night, everybody. We'll see y'all on the 18th with Beyond the Grave with Corey Tittadell.
Good night, everybody.